The Brown-Ullstrup Foundation for the Performing Arts is proud to present a new play by award-winning playwrights Stephen Brown and Michael Ullstrup, A Fireside Chat, a conversation with FDR. This play will have its world premiere in 2011. Here is Mr. Gary Stamm, who stars as President Franklin Delano Roosevelt in this one-man show.
Hi, I'm Gary Stamm, and as an actor for the past 30 years, I've always wanted to portray the 32nd President of the United States, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, in a stage play. I now have that opportunity thanks to the creative talents of two playwrights, Stephen Brown and Michael Ullstrup. Their stage play, A Fireside Chat, a conversation with FDR, is a brilliant combination of humor, honesty, and historical accuracy. I invite you to watch this brief portion of A Fireside Chat. I think it'll give you just a taste of what the playwrights bring to the stage. Finally, let me share with you President Roosevelt's favorite quotation, one which I believe is so incredibly poignant and appropriate in describing a fireside chat. Happiness lies in the joy of achievement and the thrill of creative effort. And I close with the words of FDR when he first accepted the presidential nomination of his party in 1932. Throughout the nation, men and women, forgotten in the political philosophy of the government, look to us here for guidance and for more equitable opportunity to share in the distribution of national wealth. I pledge myself to a new deal for the American people. This is more than a political campaign. It is a call to arms. I hope you enjoy this excerpt from A Fireside Chat, a conversation with FDR, written and produced by Stephen Brown and Michael Ullstrup. For A Fireside Chat, a conversation with FDR, I'm Gary Stamm. In politics, even today, we always hear a lot about vision, looking to the future. It was always my experience that the distance between hope and realization never surprised me. In fact, way back in 1933, I recall saying, "More people have visions of things they would like to see accomplished. Fortunate are those who with their own eyes see the accomplishments becoming a fact." Those are very powerful words. I can't help but remember my early days at Groton or at Harvard and recall when someone asked me during my campaign as the Democratic nominee for Vice President in 1920 about my political philosophy. I didn't even miss a beat when I responded by saying, "Philosophy? Philosophy? I am a Christian and a Democrat. That's all." I'm obliged to tell you that the title of this presentation today is A Fireside Chat. But I think now would be a good time to have such a chat, without the fireplace, of course. And I should add, as a side note, I've never used one of those newfangled teleprompters like so many presidents do today. Giving speeches was never terribly difficult for me. I gave them often, and with great vigor, as a young student at Groton. And even before that, I would pontificate at the dining room table before Mamma, Mr. James, my father. My first fireside chat, when I spoke to the people using the radio, occurred only a few days into my presidency in March of 1933. Would you mind terribly if I took a moment to tell you just how I came up with the idea of those fireside chats? Well, I was sitting in my study at the White House when I looked out the window and saw a workman taking down the inaugural scaffolding. It was at that point that I decided that I needed to make a speech about the banking crisis directly to that man I saw with a hammer outside the window. I wanted to speak directly to him. Now, what this really was, in my estimation, was a real change in the relationship between the government and the people being governed. Using the radio, which was just becoming a powerful communication tool directly to the people in their own homes, I could speak right to them. No filters, no newspapermen to rewrite history, no cable network news or the internet. Just me and you and you and you. When that first Fireside Chat was aired, Robert Trout from the CBS Radio News introduced me by saying, "The President wants to come into your home and sit at your fireside for a little fireside chat." Or rather than tell you about one of those fireside chats, allow me to demonstrate. Democracy. Just what is democracy in our country? As I see it, my job was always to make the essence of democracy, the part of it that is true in any society, in all kinds of societies, work in ours. Let me be very clear about this. I am trying to see how democracy can be applied to a different kind of environment from that in which it was born. I never forget that I live in a house owned by all the American people and that I had been given their trust. That, by the way, was from one of my fireside chats in April of 1938. I do think, however, that all my speeches had a certain tonality to them. In fact, when I spoke to the American people back on June the 28th in 1934, it almost rings true today when the President gives policy speeches on topics like national health care or stepping in and bailing out the banks. A few timid people who fear progress will try to give you new and strange names for what we are doing. Sometimes they'll call it fascism, sometimes communism, sometimes regimentation, and yes, even sometimes socialism. But in doing so, they are trying to make very complex and theoretical something that is very, very simple and very practical. I believe in practical explanations and in practical politics. I believe that what we are trying to do today is a necessary fulfillment of old and tested American ideals. I'm quite compelled at this point to let you in on a truly big secret, and that is that the most difficult place in the world to get a clear and open perspective of our great country as a whole is Washington, D.C. I'm reminded sometimes of what President Wilson once said, which was that so many people come to Washington who know things that are not so, and so few people who know what the people of the United States are thinking about. That is why, ladies and gentlemen, that from time to time I leave our nation's capital for a brief retreat back to Hyde Park so that I can have a chance to think quietly about the country as a whole, to get away from the trees, as they say, to look at the whole forest. Let me share this thought with you. I am constantly thinking about all the people of these United States, unemployed and employed alike, of their human problems of food and clothing and homes and education and health and old age. And yes, I also think about so many people who are without any health insurance. I know that these are the things that decide the well-being of all our people. Thank you.
Gary, what appeals to you the most as an actor with respect to this play and also the role of FDR?
Well, I think what the great thing about this play is it doesn't just focus on his political life. It goes back and talks about some of the things which you wouldn't think but obviously did shape him back when he was at his prep school in Groton. And those kind of things, then you can, I think the audience will be able to see for themselves how that shaped him as a man, and his political thinking. So that's one of the great things about it.
just also too that it engages the people, the audience, which is a fantastic thing for an actor, or fantastic thing hopefully for the audience. And also too that it allows us to bring in some things that are happening today and work them in and see how they related to what Roosevelt was doing, as well as as I'm sure that he's shaped some of the political people today. So you can kind of see that by staging it this way.
As an actor, how do you prepare for a role like this?
Well, there's two sides. You want to physically, vocally try to get close enough that people will accept it. So I've listened to a lot of speeches by FDR and looked at a lot of pictures as well, tried to get some mannerism, looks at not videotape, but film of him. But just as importantly as that is trying to understand why he did things, because as an actor, just doing a voice or just looking like him only gets you halfway, if that, there. So you have to try to understand why he did the things he did, so you can internalize those and bring them to the character as well.
Days are here again, the skies above are clear again. Let us sing a song of cheer again. Happy days are here